Mortal Kombat, the movie from 1995, is a martial arts, special effects laden extravaganza based on the original trilogy of the Mortal Kombat video games. It has more to do with the first game in that there's a big tournament. Earth is one of a bunch of realms who's fighting to prevent the bad guys from taking over the whole universe.
And it's mostly all the same characters from the first game.
Right. The opening sets up the whole movie with that guy just screaming, the theme song starts immediately, and you can tell what kind of movie this is going to be. And as a kid in the mid-90s, and Mortal Kombat especially being in all the news of being so overly violent, bad for the youth.
Yeah.
Which only increased
the appeal
and visibility. By trying to suppress it, it put it more in the spotlight. New Line took full advantage of that and decided to put out the movie, which built on all the hype. It's good timing on their part.
It's kind of funny that a game known for being so violent is a PG-13 movie. I think it's a good theme. It's exciting. It's distinct. You know the title of the movie just by listening. It really fits it well.
It's a very competently made track.
The first time I made a mixtape as a kid, I'm pretty sure I recorded the theme song from the VHS so you could hear people talking and fighting over it and stuff.
It's perfectly described from a mid-90s perspective as being cool.
That's true. It's a very 90s theme. That whole intro with the fire and the CGI logo and all that, and the way the fire bursts out of the screen out of the dragon's eye.
The way the letters zing in with blade sound effects.
But it's not overdone, because that is something that you get in a lot of 90s movies.
It's cool.
I think we're praising this movie too much already.
I don't think we're praising it enough. And I'm sure every kid in that theater was foaming at the mouth, spilling their surge everywhere. With their backwards baseball caps.
Flipping their pogs in the aisles.
Chewing their bubble tape.
A yo-yo battle going on in the back of the theater. So the first real scene in the movie is Shang Tsung fighting Liu Kang's brother. I feel like it's a kind of awkward scene to start with because the whole scene is in slow motion. You don't know what's going on, but it's supposed to feel really weighty, and it does serve to introduce our sort of main character, I guess, which is Liu Kang.
And right from that intro, you can kind of tell who the bad guy is by the most evil-looking person you've ever seen in your life.
Who then turns into a zombie monster guy.
And one of the most iconic lines of dialogue from this movie is thrown out in the first couple minutes when Shang Tsung, played by Cary-Hiroyuki Tagawa, says,
"Your brother's soul is mine."
He is the character model for the most current Mortal Kombat game, which is awesome, but he doesn't have the same presence as he does in this movie. You can tell the martial arts are not going to be all wires and crappy CGI. There's some good choreography going on there. I just love him killing this child. Oh, I'll be sure to put me saying that in there.
He's a pretty likable guy.
Liu Kang is played by Robin Shu, who is cool. I'm going to count how many times they say cool. Because that sums up this whole movie.
So our next scene cuts to Hong Kong for no particular reason, to introduce Sonya Blade, who's hanging out with Jax, who doesn't have his metal arms, unfortunately. Their method for us to get insight into her character is to have her just knock everybody aside in this club as she's walking through with the butt of her gun.
And there's the 90s sound effects every time she does it.
That's part of why she's my favorite character.
A lot of the people behind the making of the movie, they looked at it as, this is already a video game, we're just turning it into a movie. In a video game, you would have the character select screen and you would kind of scroll through everybody. But in the movie, we just cut to random scenes where they all say each other's names, we get their character types immediately, and it just keeps cutting quick until we know all the characters, and then the movie can quote-unquote really start.
During the Sonya Blade's intro scene, we do have Shang Tsung there, so it connects it at least somewhat to what we've seen already.
Sonya is played by Bridget Wilson Sampras.
Well, she was just Bridget Wilson at the time.
And the Kano actor, I feel like I've seen somewhere else, but I couldn't pick out when.
No, you're thinking of the Terminator.
The characters are very one-dimensional because they're based on video game sprites.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
And I like how, when he's talking to Shang Tsung...
Oh, I love punctuality in a woman. Don't you, Mr. Shang Tsung?
Because, you know, when I'm talking to people, I usually put a big gap in between the end of the sentence and when I say their name. Isn't that right? Robert?
I will say, as a kid, Kano was the only character that I didn't care for. I never thought anybody would like him, and I still feel that way as an adult.
Then we get a quick cut to our next character select, which is Johnny Cage, who is played by Lyndon Ashby.
And he's got just the right amount of arrogance.
Whereas movies today, they go so far, it's gratingly annoying.
He still manages to be likable, even though he's, at the same time, very unlikable.
Everyone thinks he's a martial artist fake from his movies, and his mentor tells him, if you win the tournament, you'll earn everybody's respect.
He brings it up out of nowhere. Here's a scroll in Chinese. I hope you can read Chinese. Just based on this one little interaction, he's going to be on a boat while he's in the middle of filming this movie and go fight in some tournament that he's never heard of before.
And because this movie blew so much money on special effects, he, right in front of us, changes into Shang Tsung.
And again, we've got Shang Tsung directly connected to each of our main characters so far, so that's good.
And because it's the 90s, every special visual effect has an accompanying audio effect that goes with it.
Yeah. Morphing effects like that were one of the first computer effects that were relatively easy to do well, so they do them a lot in this movie.
So then Liu Kang shows up to China.
During this scene, there's a shot where the camera goes forward into this temple, and there's these kids running up the stairs, and it's a really good shot. And I'm kind of surprised that there's that good of a shot in this movie.
So then, what we've all been waiting for, Raiden shows up, who is played, inexplicably, by Christopher Lambert.
If ever a unique person existed, it's Christopher Lambert.
Who should play Lord Raiden, God of Thunder and Lightning? I would not say Christopher Lambert.
And he's based on a Japanese character? I have a question about that whole situation there. So they say Liu Kang is the chosen one, and he seems to be the only one who doesn't believe in any of this stuff. Why wouldn't they choose somebody else?
Why don't you get a dictionary and look up the word fate? What kind of question is that? Really, in every movie or TV show where someone's the chosen one, they always ask, why was I chosen?
Yeah, and it's always stupid. It's such a lazy concept, too, for an excuse to have you follow this character around that doesn't seem important until they're important.
Yeah, just wait until you get woken up in the middle of the night by aliens and they say you're the chosen one. Then we'll see what you have to say. You'll say, go find someone else and go back to sleep.
You think that hasn't happened already? I gotta get my sleep.
And you were like, leave me alone, and your makeup looks like shit. The monks want him to go defeat the bad guy in the tournament. And then he says, I'm going to go defeat the bad guy in the tournament with or without your consent. But that's what they want him to do.
They say that cannot be your only reason for going or you will fail.
Yeah, maybe he could say, I want to go do some kayaking. I want to go fight a CGI lizard. I want to see if I can meet Brian Thompson in the sequel.
Johnny Cage shows up at the location the boat is supposed to be and meets another martial artist named Art Lean, who is not from the video games.
So
Which means he's going to die.
I like how he says,
I saw a couple of your films. Listen, you can't fake those moves.
but he's in a movie with a bunch of CGI transforming people and people shooting spears and ice out of their bodies. Can't fake those moves.
I hadn't thought about that, but that's funny, yeah. The scene doesn't really make sense.
But we have to have the main characters somehow interact with each other. Then straight out of a Universal Studios park ride, the evil Chinese boat shaped like a dragon with fog coming out of it and
Weird CGI waverings over the torn up sail.
And then Sonya sees Kano.
Sonya Blade doesn't question anything. She just goes right on, pulls her gun out, waving it all over the place, and doing her action movie stances.
All the set pieces look like video game stages. When Sonya goes below deck, all the chains are hanging from the ceiling, and you got the walkways.
Yeah, which is cool. I mean, it works in the movie. We meet Scorpion and Sub-Zero, and they give a demonstration of their unique abilities.
Oh, you forgot. Shang Tsung also has to say their names, so we know who they are.
Scorpion and Sub-Zero. Deadliest of enemies.
As a kid, I thought Scorpion's power was so cool, but it doesn't make any sense that he can fit that thing inside his hand or arm or body.
When Scorpion's spear mouth thing comes out of his hand, that CGI is not very good.
And is it supposed to come out of his hand in the game, or does he throw it?
The Scorpion originally threw his spear, but it was largely because of the movie that it changed to actually coming out of his hand.
Shang Tsung's wearing all black, Raiden's wearing all white. They're kind of keeping each other in check.
I like how he calls Shang Tsung's fighters sideshow freaks when he just came into the room as a ball of lightning. It's also revealed that Shang Tsung is working for the Emperor.
So it's a Star Wars tie-in, too.
In the Blu-ray release of this movie, they replaced him with Ian McDiarmid.
And instead of shouting Mortal Kombat, they shout that scream that he does when he falls down the shaft. Johnny Cage finally comments on how weird everything is. That whole little speech that he has sounds a lot like Jack Burton in Big Trouble in Little China, which was one of the inspirations for Mortal Kombat the game in the first place, and for the character of Raiden.
I don't even know what the hell that means. All I know is this Lopan character comes out of thin air in the middle of a goddamn alley while his buddies are flying around on wires cutting everybody to shreds, and he just stands there waiting for me to drive my truck straight through him with light coming out of his mouth.
Got a guy with things coming out of his hand. We got another guy who freezes stuff. And then there's a man who, as far as I can tell, is made out of electricity. I mean, how did he disappear like that? What is going on here? Who is this guy?
Christopher Lambert's whole delivery is so good. I imagine a lot of it was he himself choosing to do it that way.
Right, I think so too.
Yeah, can you imagine how terrible it would be if it was someone like James Remar?
Never give up hope.
I like the dumb rules of invading Earth.
That was a question I had, is who set all that up? Why do they all obey these rules? What happens if they break them?
And then one of my favorite lines in this movie is when Christopher Lambert says,
"The fate of billions will depend upon you." Sorry.
The whole movie, it feels like he's laughing at everybody. Not in a mocking way necessarily, but it's almost like he's enjoying everything that's happening.
in 1995, the set that they're on would look fine, but when everything is in HD, it's very obvious they're on a stage. You can even see the fog hitting the wall in the back. You can tell that the stars are just a piece of fabric. You can see the folds in the fabric. They're not moving.
And we get that ending scene from Highlander, where Shang Tsung raises his arms to the sky and all these weird CGI demons fly around. It's completely unnecessary. It's just there to have an effects scene. I think that's supposed to be the Emperor's head. What's his name?
Shao Kahn.
I keep saying Shere Khan. Is Shere Khan the tiger from the Jungle Book? Yeah. It's basically the same thing, yeah.
Are you going to talk about how Sonya's trying to talk on a freaking walkie-talkie from halfway across the world and wondering why it doesn't work?
And this is the first time she's tried talking on it. You'd think the first thing she would say is, hey, I need some backup. There's people that turn into electricity and have snakes coming out of their hands. I like how everybody else walking along this beach is wearing a shirt that somehow accentuates their physique.
I would like to know what those banners say.
Yeah, when he got that scroll, the first two kanji were death and life. But yeah, I don't know if it actually said anything.
The one symbol is for 1 billion, and then the other symbol is
So they walk up this long flight of stairs, and Johnny Cage drops his luggage. It falls down in this really weird way where it kind of slides off the stairs. It just looks really funny.
So we get this cool interior set, which again looks like a stage from the video game.
And I like all the characters' interactions in these scenes.
They have good chemistry.
Even though a lot of the things they say to each other don't make sense. And we meet Princess Katana,
Played by Talisa Soto.
sitting under a parasol, even though the sun is not out. And her character is that she's really hot.
We also get the interesting looking statues of Roman centurions and robed skeletons. And then we get this really crappy looking lizard one.
It looks like a 13-year-old's idea of the coolest possible monster they could draw, using a 13-year-old's drawing ability.
Shang Tsung is walking behind our three main characters. He has to say Reptile's name to the statue, which then turns into the most realistic, Academy Award-winning special effect people have been trying to emulate to this day.
Away from these humans.
That's what inspired James Cameron to do Avatar.
He spent over $2 million trying to get the digital rights to that actual character model, and they wouldn't give it to him. When they get down to Pandora, I want to have all these lizards running around, but it has to be the lizard from Mortal Kombat. For some weird reason, the rights to that character belong to Christopher Lambert. So we get a very much Enter the Dragon type scene where everyone's eating and Shang Tsung comes out and basically gives the same opening speech that Han gives.
The whole scene doesn't make any sense, because they have all this food laid out, and then they just throw it all aside, and they have this guy challenge Sub-Zero. Does this guy know that he's gonna die? What would happen if he won? Sub-Zero is just, I'm just gonna freeze you.
Yeah, but he takes about 20 minutes to prep up his ice ball, so if anybody came at him a little quicker, they would win.
Doesn't matter though, because it's cool. And he does a running kick from 15 feet away. And as soon as that demonstration is over, everybody just kind of goes their own way. What about the food that they were supposed to eat? Do they have rooms? Has everything been set up? We see some people kind of milling around very calmly. So Liu Kang wants to go after Shang Tsung, and Johnny Cage stops him. Then Sonya Blade comes up, and she's going to go after him. And then they all go after him. And then we see that they're being spied on by a Ninja Turtle.
Either that or a roided out Yoda.
Don't give them ideas for episode 10 or whatever. We actually see Goro when he's talking to Kano. And when he walks, there are these really bad sound effects that are supposed to make him sound a lot bigger than he actually is.
Those who challenge his power become his slaves.
Okay, let's talk about Goro.
It's a really impressive costume / animatronic, but practical special effects are only as good as the way they're used in the scene and how the camera looks at them. And the camera holds on Goro a little too long. When you have animatronics that require so many people to control them, usually you only get a few seconds at a time of really good shots. A good example for that is Aliens, which I think has some of the best practical effects. James Cameron started out doing special effects, so he knows how to shoot them. And he said when they were doing the stuff with the Queen, they would only get a few seconds of usable footage at a time, and there was a lot more footage that they couldn't use. But when you see it in the movie, it just looks great. In this movie, a lot of the behind-the-scenes stuff looks really good. The stuff in the movie, some of it looks good, some of it doesn't look so good. But in terms of actual achievement, it's probably up there with the Alien Queen.
Goro is voiced by Kevin Michael Richardson. When you hear him doing characters, you know it's him.
How lucky for them! Back home.
Oh, but when he does his grunts and stuff, it's Frank Welker.
Of course it is.
That's another problem I have with Goro. He can talk like a normal person. He is an intelligent individual. But he spends a lot of the movie just making a bunch of monster noises.
I wonder what Tagawa was thinking during the shooting of this whole thing.
I mean, at the time, again, being an Asian actor, he was probably just glad that he had such a big part.
The sets are really cool.
Yeah, I'm surprised that they did as much as they did for this movie, as far as that goes. He tells Kano not to harm her, just humiliate her. But how else is the fight supposed to end then? Is it possible for somebody to not die?
It seems like Shang Tsung, whenever he shows up, his job is to explain the history of everything and what everyone's motivations are.
Yeah, and presumably these characters already know that. So the three of them leave, and they see Princess Katana, and they try to follow after her. Johnny Cage says he knows which way she went because he can smell her perfume. But the passage they're going through, every single arch they come to, they have to tear away an entire passage full of spider webs. I don't think she went that way. We get our theme music as they all get attacked.
And Robin Shou does most of the flipping around.
And he does the infamous Resident Evil kick that Paul W.S. Anderson would use later down the road for Milla Jovovich. He jumps off a wall with one leg and then turns around and kicks with the same leg, which is the most impractical thing that I could imagine.
Such a cool kick.
At the end of the fight, it's like, how cool can we make these characters seem? Every character strikes a pose, and then they're all really flippant about the whole situation. So we get to the scene where Liu Kang is fighting this guy that looks like a cat.
You even hear cat sounds.
And all I could think about during that fight was that his hair would be a big disadvantage like that. It keeps whipping around into his face.
The last hit that Liu Kang does, I'm trying to reconcile the physics of it.
Well, if he's kicking forward, he would kick himself back. He doesn't have any forward momentum. He's just starting from a standing position. But I don't think it would be as bad as the movie makes it out to be. Okay, even knowing what a fatality is, it's still kind of goofy in this movie whenever somebody says it.
Fatality.
And then we get to Sonya shadowboxing. She's just warming up, but she's moving kind of slow, and she does this weird backhand that wouldn't really have a lot of force to it.
Some weird sexual predator against some woman who can't actually fight.
She doesn't have a gun to hit people with like she usually does.
It's a very impractical knife he pulls out.
Yeah, but it's cool.
I guess because Bridget Wilson can't actually fight, they decided to compensate for that by making every punch she delivers sound like a hydrogen bomb is going off.
I like this fight. It feels more like a real fight because she really does feel outmatched. So she was originally supposed to be played by Cameron Diaz. Imagine if that's what we were dealing with here.
That would be awful. And then one of our good guy characters makes a joke before she murders somebody.
Which is another reason I like this scene.
Oh, give me a break.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden, we cut straight to the woods, where Lyndon Ashby is walking. How did he get there? What is he doing?
And if this is an official fight, I mean, there's nobody watching.
And we know that Shang Tsung only cares about Liu Kang not winning.
I mean, to be fair, the movie doesn't say it's an official fight. Maybe he sent Scorpion after Johnny Cage, but it still doesn't explain why they're here.
Since Scorpion delivers his probably most well-known line,
Get over here!
Johnny Cage does one of his special moves from the game and ends up in a really cool-looking wooden pole, Nightmare on Elm Street cobweb zone.
And the fight was originally supposed to end with him kicking Scorpion there. They shot all this other stuff afterward.
I find the music here very interesting. It's like somebody said, hey, my cousin plays in a band. And they said, all right, have him send over a track.
Oh, that's exactly what it sounds like, yeah. But in the 90s, this passed for cool, too. I do like the setting, though. It's really unique. I mean, they put a lot in there. You can tell there's a lot of stuff above and below them and all around them.
How about when he does all those gymnastics and defies physics to get up on that top platform?
And we see Scorpion. At first, he's pulling his mask off, but then his entire face morphs into a skull.
And his blood is a bunch of macaroni and cheese sauce. And right after it, Liu Kang is getting ready to fight on the beach.
So what do you think of this fight?
Nobody wins. Nobody even really gets hurt. And they just go their separate ways.
Yeah, which is weird. Again, what are the rules? I don't understand.
Shang Tsung said Katana must not be allowed to help Liu Kang. So wouldn't you do everything to keep them away from each other instead of scheduling a fight between them?
After the previous fight, we're just on to the next fight. It does feel like a video game in that sense.
Really, any story at this point is completely on hold.
I was surprised at how decent the story is for the most part, even though we're asking a lot of questions about the rules of this tournament.
And then Sub-Zero, when he goes to do his ice ball thing, Liu Kang saw it before, so he knows he has a full minute and a half to get over there and just punch him in the face. But he doesn't do it. Instead, he remembers what Katana told him.
To win your next match, use the element which brings life.
What?
Katana even shows up in the doorway.
Yeah.
So that whole fight was totally pointless. She could have just yelled it from the doorway. Throw the bucket of water at him.
She says it like a riddle. I mean, what's the difference? She's helping him either way.
And then Sub-Zero gets frozen. That shouldn't defeat him.
They just thought it was cool. So we finally get some Goro action. And he's very slow. They really needed somebody else to shoot this scene to make it more effective, effects-wise.
I do like the two guys, and it cuts back to them once in a while.
Like they stepped right out of a 90s commercial. And we get that cool zoom in on the eye.
So then all of a sudden, the three main characters start to act like there's a threat, and they should start taking this seriously.
And they're actually listening to Raiden.
And Raiden tells them all their weaknesses, which doesn't matter because Liu Kang's the only important one.
Yeah, if you look at the grand scheme of the movie, Johnny Cage doesn't really do anything important, and Sonya Blade's only real importance is that she gets kidnapped.
So then Johnny Cage and Sonya start to build a relationship.
I couldn't let that happen to you. So Johnny Cage is going to go after Goro because he doesn't want Goro to fight Sonya.
So that's the deal he makes with Shang Tsung?
He can challenge Goro at any time.
That deal doesn't make any sense. He says, I'll let you fight Goro, which you were going to do anyway. But if I let you do that now, I get to choose who I fight at the end. I imagine when they were writing this movie, they were having a conversation very much like this one. And they said, so we'll make the movie. And then Christopher Lambert came in and said,
I don't think so.
He's like, it's too late. We've just sealed the deal. And Shang Tsung even says the rules are quite clear. When the rules have been anything but clear, Johnny Cage does his splits and punches Goro right in the crotch.
Which again is a Van Damme reference to Bloodsport.
I would feel so bad if Cary-Hiroyuki Tagawa was my dad, because anytime you did anything wrong, he would just look at you. You imbecile! You would just feel like such shit. I'm sorry, Dad.
Don't swallow my soul. So Johnny Cage, after punching Goro, just runs away. And Goro follows after him, but nobody else. Is everybody else just standing back there? Are they still cheering over there? Oh, and when he says...
Those were $500 sunglasses, asshole.
And Goro turns around, and he makes the most cartoonish face and sound. Well, there's a long shot of Johnny Cage and Goro fighting, and it looks really bad. When Goro does his RoboCop fall, the whole shot doesn't make sense. The way the clouds are positioned, it doesn't match up.
Shang Tsung decides to enact his part of the deal, which is I can fight whoever I want for the final battle. So he chooses, logically, the one that would be easiest to beat.
He pulls her into his Stargate. I like how even Raiden says that Sonya can't beat Shang Tsung.
And he told her earlier,
if you are afraid to trust, you will lose.
But she's learned how to trust. But then he says she's still going to lose.
Can Sonya beat Shang Tsung?
No.
I was just lying. I was just making that up.
They are no better prepared for their situation than they were at the beginning of the movie. So they go to Outworld.
Liu Kang can sense shitty CGI around him. So he reaches and grabs Reptile.
I like the way he throws it away from him, and it just falls on the statue, and then he immediately kind of calms down, as if, like, the problem's taken care of.
And then it turns into Reptile, and a voice from nowhere just says the character's name out loud because Shang Tsung is up in his tower, and he's not there to come down and say his name.
Reptile.
And then they go into this building, and they fight. Where's Johnny Cage? He's not even watching. He's still outside.
I honestly didn't even think about that.
So then Reptile is defeated, and he turns into the end of Halloween 3. And then Liu Kang does his best Bruce Lee.
When they're in Outworld, we get the most 90s shot of the entire movie, where the camera zooms in toward this black tower and does the spin all around it, and it's all cool and CGI.
And it even goes inside, and it finally ends up on Bridget Wilson, standing apparently in the middle of Night Trap. So she says, I'm not going to fight you. And he says, okay, that means you forfeit. And he starts to walk away, and then Liu Kang and Johnny Cage and Kitana reveal they were there the whole time. But she already said, I forfeit.
And even here at the end, he tries to challenge Johnny Cage instead of Liu Kang.
But the deal was he gets to choose who he fights, but then the good guys decide who he's going to fight.
It keeps making less and less sense the more I think about it.
Liu Kang says, I challenge you to Mortal Kombat. Why couldn't a guy with a bazooka just say, I challenge you to Mortal Kombat?
Yeah, that's a good point, too. We get our main theme again for the big ending fight.
Tagawa was 45 years old. He's doing pretty good for being 45 years old. Liu Kang has to overcome these tests that come out of nowhere. All he's got to do is keep punching Shang Tsung until he dies.
So Liu Kang beats all these other guys pretty easily.
Yeah, and they come at him one at a time. And just in case you're not sure what's going on, Kitana is still our narrator. And she'll say things like,
Face your enemy. Face yourself. Face your worst fear.
It's a good thing they didn't say test your intellect.
Even here at the very end, Shang Tsung makes Liu Kang run all the way up these steps to tire himself out before he fights him again.
The test when Kitana says, face yourself, and all Shang Tsung has said is, you will die. And Liu Kang says,
you can look into my soul, but you don't own it.
Anybody could have said that. Are these just little inconveniences he has to pass? When Liu Kang says, Shang Tsung killed my brother, and he morphs back into Shang Tsung, and he does the,
his most exaggerated face in this movie.
Can you imagine if you accidentally cut him off in traffic and you looked over to the side?
So Liu Kang does his energy punch. So he falls squarely on one of the spikes. And he dissolves into a skeleton that does not look like a human skeleton.
So then Liu Kang transports into the Wizard of Oz. Just imagine a cow or two guys in a canoe going by. Well, what if Shang Tsung was eating a hamburger and he did the soul suck on it? Would he get the soul of the cow? Do cows have souls? This video just got a lot deeper.
And it's like a Terminator 2 moment where he's like, my spirit will always be with you. And this is where the audience gets all teary-eyed because they're trying to stay awake. This movie's been going on for an hour and a half.
So they win. They defeated Shang Tsung. Earth is safe. And they're all celebrating. But then the Emperor busts through the dimension anyway, knocks down all their buildings, and says,
"You weak, pathetic fools, I've come for your souls."
Which negates the entire plot of the movie.
They should have looked up those rules. And I always hated that ending. There's no cooldown time at all. You see them celebrating for about 10 seconds, and then this monster guy pops up, and then the movie's over. Which, honestly, that is my single biggest complaint about the entire movie, is that ending. It would have been so easy to just show them celebrating and have it be over. This is the only Paul W.S. Anderson movie that I actually enjoy on its own merits. As much as I laugh at goofy things in it, it is an enjoyable, entertaining movie. It doesn't try to be more than just an action video game adaptation.
And the people in front of the camera and behind the camera were competent.
Best character.
Best character is a tie between Shang Tsung and Raiden.
I would say Raiden, but yeah, I would say it's close. Worst character, I would say Kano. He's not interesting. He's just a creepy weirdo.
Yeah.
Although I do wish that Sub-Zero and Scorpion had a little more to them. Best fight, I would say the Johnny Cage Scorpion fight once they go into that other place.
I do like that one. I think the worst fight for me would be Liu Kang and Katana.
It's just an excuse to have her talk to him again.
So definitely a movie that sticks with people and they remember it fondly.
I think a lot of people nowadays would probably completely brush it off because of the reputation that video game movies have, but this is definitely one of the more competent ones. It's a movie that would still work if you hadn't ever played any of the games.
Mortal Kombat for the time, and as a kid, it was really cool.
And as an adult, it's still an entertaining movie on its own terms.
So yeah, you should check it out.